The rich took hold of all the dungeons so no one else can level up their stats, but Su Chun awakens the ability to do dungeon raids in his dreams, while he sleeps, where he can also steal any monster's powers by devouring them. But the elites can't bear seeing him rise, so they start plotting his downfall. Year 2167, May 16th. The demon race had completely conquered the human world. Not a single place was left untouched. After the final battle, everyone was exhausted, yet Shi Chun still stood tall, an SSS rank lightning assassin. 7 years earlier, several demon kings had descended upon the world. Led by Demon King Lanying, they crushed humanity with overwhelming force, sweeping through the land without resistance. The Demon King mocked him, saying that humanity was nothing more than fragile trash, existing only to become nourishment. As he began drawing power from Shi Chun, the end seemed inevitable. But at that moment, something snapped inside him. He thought of his sister, his comrades, his master, everyone he had lost. Rage and grief surged through him as he refused to die quietly. Even if it cost him everything, he swore to drag the Demon King down with him. With that resolve, he activated his ultimate skill, SSS rank, Terminus Arc. Blinding light erupted, swallowing everything in its path. Even the Demon King was caught off guard, frozen in place as the energy surged out of control. As the light consumed them, Shi Chen's thoughts drifted to the people he loved. He felt regret that he hadn't been strong enough, that he hadn't changed anything sooner. If only he could go back. If only he had discovered the demon lair earlier. If only he had stopped the first Demon King from ever appearing. Then none of this would have happened. Suddenly, his vision went dark. When he opened his eyes again, he found himself lying in a hospital bed. Confused, he looked around. The room was clean and quiet. People were walking around casually, chatting like nothing had ever happened. No panic, no destruction. For a moment, he couldn't understand what he was seeing. Wasn't the world already destroyed? Where did all these people come from? Took him a while to process it, but eventually the truth settled in. He had returned to the past. Back to May 16th, 2157. 3 years before the demon invasion ever began. And only then did he realize he had been given a second chance. He realized he had returned 10 years into the past, back to his university days. The thought stunned him. Then, a notification appeared in front of his eyes, confirming it. Power of gluttony integration completed. So it was real. He had truly gone back to the time before everything fell apart. May 16th, 2157. 3 years before the demon invasion began. 3 years before the first demon king, Wrath, descended upon the world. The very demon who opened the gates of hell and allowed the others to flood in, bringing total destruction with them. That single event was the beginning of the end, the reason he lost everything. But now he was back. If he could stop Wrath before that moment, the gates would never open. The world wouldn't fall. Everything could change. A faint sense of excitement stirred in his chest. The power of gluttony had already finished integrating. Only then did he notice something strange. A translucent interface floating in front of his eyes. It had been there ever since he woke up. He focused on it, curiosity growing. What is this? It looked like some kind of game status screen. Are these my attributes? He had never seen anything like this before. In his past life, he had relied purely on his awakened abilities. Only 1 in 10,000 people could awaken, and he had been one of the unlucky ones. Despite studying at National Awakener University, he had failed to awaken throughout all 4 years. He had been stuck at the very bottom of the hierarchy. Anyone could push him around. No wonder he had woken up in the infirmary. As he looked around, he noticed a card floating within the interface. Class, Lightning Assassin. The description followed. Lightning God infuses the body with electricity. Movement speed greatly increased. Lightning blade condenses electrical energy into a weapon. Attacks deal critical damage and can paralyze targets. Reading it, Shi Chun felt something stir inside him. He focused his thoughts. A system prompt appeared, switching class. The moment the process completed, a faint snap echoed in the air. Just then, someone pushed the door open. It was Ma Long. "Hey, you're awake," he said in surprise. "Are you feeling okay now?" Shi Chun replied calmly that he was fine, while thinking to himself that, just as expected, no one else could see the interface. Ma Long walked closer, looking him up and down in disbelief. "Wait, your injuries are gone? You were beaten half to death yesterday. You're recovering even faster than an awakener." Shi Chun glanced at him quietly. So this is Ma Long. In his previous life, Ma Long had awakened, but only barely. He had remained at the bottom and ended up dying on the 3rd day after the Demon King's descent. Still, Ma Long kept staring at him, frowning. Why do I feel like you've gotten stronger all of a sudden? Is it just my imagination? Shi-chun didn't answer. Inside, his thoughts were racing. He's really here, standing right in front of me. I've truly come back. Ma Long suddenly remembered something. Oh right, tomorrow's the rank test. Since you're okay now, let's go get ready. Even if you haven't awakened yet, it still affects your graduation evaluation. Come on. As they walked out together, the training grounds came into view. Students were everywhere, practicing abilities, showing off techniques, even messing around. Seeing so many people alive and moving made Shi-chun pause. It's been so long since I've seen this many living people. Ma Long glanced at him strangely. Hey, what's with that look? You're saying some pretty scary stuff. Let's just walk around the field. Shi-chun nodded, but his thoughts were still elsewhere. This time, things will be different. He could feel it. The future he had lost was standing right in front of him again. Shi-chun thought to himself that he had once lost everything. If he didn't act now, that same desperate future would arrive again. He had to move fast. He had to grow stronger. In this era, there was only one way for an awakener to level up, by hunting monsters inside demon lairs. But nearly all of those lairs were controlled by major guilds. Ordinary people had no chance to enter, let alone grow stronger. He glanced at his own status and wondered how strong he truly was compared to others. The government classified both awakeners and monsters into ranks S, A, B, C, D, and E. Most students at the university were stuck at D rank. Only a handful of geniuses or those backed by powerful guilds could reach C rank. Based on his experience, he knew he was already stronger than most. His gaze drifted toward Ma Long. I'm definitely stronger than him. Just then, something flew through the air at terrifying speed and smashed straight into Ma Long's face. The impact sent him tumbling to the ground, his glasses shattering. A mocking voice followed. Yo, isn't that Shi-chun and Ma Long? You guys recovered pretty fast. Ma Long struggled to get up, clearly shaken. Damn, of all people, we had to run into them. Shi-chun remained calm. He wasn't surprised at all. The bully smirked. I told you these two were tough. You knew I was playing ball here. Why didn't you bring a couple crates of drinks? Ma Long immediately bowed his head. Sorry, I'll go buy them right now. But Shi-chun stepped forward. You're not the ones who should be apologizing, he said coldly. The same guy who had always looked down on him. And this time, Shi-chun had no intention of bowing his head again. Old memories suddenly flooded back. Memories of how this guy used to mess with him over and over again. The same face, the same mocking grin. Shi-chun remembered it all too clearly. Ma Long noticed what was happening and quickly tried to stop it, telling them to knock it off. But the bully only laughed harder. He said something along the lines of how they were just helping out, that Shi-chun still hadn't awakened and probably needed a little motivation. The group burst into laughter, clearly enjoying themselves way too much. After fooling around for a bit, they lost interest. Tsh, he passed out already? Boring. Let's go. They turned to leave, completely ignoring him. Ma Long rushed over and called out to him, asking if he was okay. Shi-chun slowly opened his eyes and muttered that they never seemed to leave him alone. But Shi-chun stepped forward this time. He calmly said it wasn't Ma Long's fault, and that the ones who should apologize were standing right in front of them. The bully's expression darkened. Ma Long panicked and tried to stop him, but it was too late. The guy, Gong Zhang, started gathering energy in his fist, his expression turning vicious. The people behind him also tensed up, ready to jump in. Shi-chun watched him quietly. He knew this type well, someone who only dared to bully the weak because his older brother was the student council president. On his own, he wasn't anything special. Someone nearby whispered that Gong Zhang was about to beat them again. Others laughed, saying one of them was useless and the other hadn't even awakened. Gong Zhang stepped closer and sneered, asking what Shi-chun had just said. Shi-chun met his eyes calmly and told him not to bother them anymore. That was enough. Gong Zhang clenched his fist, anger flashing across his face, and said he'd teach him another lesson. And this time, Shi-chun didn't back down. Before Gong Zhang could even finish pulling his fist back, Shi-chun moved. A sharp impact echoed through the air as she's punch landed squarely on him, sending him stumbling backward. Everyone froze. From a distance, some of the girls stared in shock, whispering to each other. They couldn't believe what they had just seen. Shi-chun had actually blocked Gong Zhang's attack. Gong staggered, clearly stunned. What just happened? He quickly regained himself, rage flashing across his face. You damn non-awakened trash. You actually dare to hit me? Shi-chun calmly looked at him and replied that this was a good chance to test something. At that moment, energy surged through his body. Electricity crackled across his skin as his class activated. His presence completely changed. Ma Long's eyes widened. When did you awaken? Lightning wrapped around Shi-chun's arms, humming with power. The surrounding students could feel the pressure. Gong snarled and activated his own ability. You think this little trick scares me? I'll show you what real strength looks like. He charged forward, aura flaring. But Shi-chun moved faster. In the blink of an eye, he struck again. The impact sent Gong flying backward, crashing heavily into the ground. Gasps echoed from all around. What just happened? He sent Gong flying with one punch. Is that really Shi-chun? Even Ma Long stood frozen in shock. Gong struggled to get up, his face twisted with rage and disbelief. You bastard! You dare sneak attack me? He staggered to his feet, shouting for his lackeys to help, but none of them moved. They were all staring at Shi-chun, frozen in fear. Lightning flickered around Shi-chun's body as he stepped forward calmly. You're too weak, he said flatly. With another swift strike, he sent Gong crashing down again, harder than before. The courtyard fell silent. Everyone watching understood one thing clearly now. Shi-chun was no longer someone they could look down on. The bully lay on the ground, barely moving. It didn't look like he'd be getting up anytime soon. That hit had done real damage. This time, he was definitely heading straight to the infirmary. The surrounding students panicked and scattered in every direction. Ma Long stared at the scene in disbelief. Shi-chun, when did you get this strong? Shi-chun didn't answer right away. Instead, he checked his status calmly, his thoughts racing. So this confirms a few things, he thought. First, I can still freely switch into my lightning assassin state. Second, even though my system level is only level 1, my actual combat strength is already far above ordinary awakeners. That meant he was at least above E rank, maybe higher. Exactly how high, he still wasn't sure. But one thing bothered him. I clearly defeated him, so why didn't my stats increase? That question lingered in his mind. Then a thought struck him. Could it be that the condition for gaining experience is different now? He slowly raised his hand, electricity crackling around his fingers, as he formed a condensed bolt of lightning. The air around him buzzed with danger. The onlookers gasped. Some covered their eyes, while others peeked through their fingers, too scared to look away completely. Ma Long panicked. Hey, Shi-chun, what are you doing? Gong, lying on the ground, finally realized what was happening. His eyes widened in terror as the lightning hovered inches from his face. Shi-chun stared down at him, deep in thought. Is this how it works now? Do I really need to go this far just to gain experience? The crackling energy reflected in his eyes as he hesitated, torn between curiosity and restraint. Shi-chun grabbed Gong Zhang by the collar, but before he could do anything else, a voice cut in sharply. Enough! This is a school. A woman stepped forward. It was Ling Yu, the vice president of the student council. She always liked acting like a teacher, probably because it made her feel important. If it weren't for moments like this, no one would even bother paying attention to her. When the bullying was happening earlier, she hadn't shown up once. But now that Gong Zhang was the one in trouble, she suddenly appeared, acting righteous. She looked at Shi-chun and said calmly, even if he was in the wrong first, this much is enough. You shouldn't go any further. Then she turned to Gong Zhang with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes and said something along the lines of, don't worry, he won't dare touch you again. Shi-chun loosened his grip and tossed Gong aside. Inside, he felt a cold smile form. So the student council really does protect their own. He hadn't even planned on going that far, but people like this never learned unless they were scared properly. The surrounding students, who had been hiding earlier, finally dared to breathe again. Seeing the look on Gong Zheng's face, they silently agreed on one thing. This guy was terrifying. Better not mess with him again. Ma Long walked up to Shi-chun, still a bit shaken. Not long after, the student council members left. That night, in the dormitory, Ma Long couldn't stop talking. He excitedly told everyone how Shi-chun had crushed Gong Zhang, how he'd completely dominated him, how even the bullies didn't dare look his way afterward. Xiangzhua, an E-rank nucleus mage, laughed it off. Come on, if he's really that strong, why's he still training like the rest of us? Does a real powerhouse even need to do basic exercises? Ma Long tried to argue, but he couldn't find the words. Xiangzhua scoffed. Face it, the four of us are at the very bottom of the rankings. I'm already the strongest among us, and I'm only E rank. You really think someone like Shi-chun is a lightning assassin? Don't make me laugh. He crossed his arms smugly. People only get one awakening in their life. That's a fact. He's just a support type at best. Ma Long fell silent. Deep down, though, he wasn't so sure anymore, because what he had seen earlier didn't feel fake at all. On the other hand, Shi-chun could clearly feel himself getting stronger. At this rate, he might actually be able to qualify for a club soon. The next day, someone announced that the final rank test before graduation would be held soon. Once that was over, everyone's true standing would be decided. At the E-rank training grounds, a large group of students had gathered. Among them was Gong Ting, the student council president. The moment he arrived, everyone straightened up instinctively. With a calm expression, he waved his hand and told everyone to end the day's training. As he turned to leave, he noticed Gong Zhang lingering nearby. You're still here? He he asked calmly. Gong Zheng clenched his fists. Brother, you have to deal with this. He embarrassed me in front of everyone. If you don't step in, I won't be able to swallow this humiliation. Gong Ting looked at him quietly for a moment, then nodded. I understand. I'll handle it. Later that evening, during a casual meal, the student council vice president spoke up. So, how do you plan to deal with that kid? Gong Ting replied calmly. From what I saw, he simply overpowered Gong Zheng. But is he really that strong? She smiled faintly. You know the situation of this academy. Fewer than 10 people have reached C rank, and you've already recruited all of them into the council. Ordinary students don't even have access to demon lairs. No matter how talented they are, they can't catch up. Gong Ting nodded slowly. That's true. Meanwhile, under the pouring rain, Shi-chun was running alone. Weighted gear pressed down on his body, over 100 kilograms, as he ran lap after lap without stopping. Basic training strengthens the body, he thought, and the stronger the body, the more power it can withstand. He knew this better than anyone. In his previous life, he had learned the hard way that an awakener's limit was directly tied to their physical endurance. As rain soaked through his clothes, his mind drifted to the future. In the year 2160, the Demon King Wrath would descend. That single event would begin the collapse of the world. Cities would fall. Countless people would die. His sister, too. Wrath was the one who opened the gates of hell and allowed the other demon kings to enter the world. So my first goal is clear, Shi-chun thought. I must kill Wrath. He had 3 years. 3 years to surpass him. His phone suddenly vibrated. He stopped running and glanced at the screen. It was a call from Xiaoyun. He hesitated for a moment, then answered. Hello. A voice suddenly came through the phone. His sister was calling. She sounded cheerful, saying she had been busy at a competition and only just got home after her phone died. She mentioned that if she won this time, their rent problem would finally be solved. Hearing her voice made Shi-chen's chest tighten. In his past life, he had begged the heavens countless times for a chance to start over. Now that voice was right there again, alive and warm. She asked if it was raining on his side and wondered why he had gone quiet. Shi-chen forced himself to respond, saying it was nothing and that he had just missed hearing her voice. She laughed and said they had spoken only a couple of days ago, then told him to wait for her good news before hanging up. When the call ended, Shi-chun stood still for a long moment. Everything had truly restarted. He clenched his fists, his expression turning firm. No matter what it took, he would protect this future. He would not let history repeat itself. He began running again, pushing his body harder than before. Several hours passed. By the time he stopped, his body was exhausted, but his mind was clearer. It had been 8 hours since he returned to this time. His body was weaker than in his previous life, but it was young and full of potential. Now there was something more important to consider. If he wanted to grow stronger, he needed access to demon lairs. But those places were tightly controlled by the major guilds. Ordinary people had no chance of entering. Then there was the strange power he had awakened, the so-called power of gluttony. As that thought crossed his mind, a strange sensation spread through his body. Something responded. A translucent interface appeared before his eyes, lines of light forming one after another. The system began to activate. Before he could fully react, the world around him twisted and warped. His surroundings dissolved, replaced by darkness. When his vision cleared, he found himself standing in an unfamiliar place. The ground beneath his feet was cracked and scorched. The air felt heavy and oppressive, filled with a sense of danger. He instinctively understood one thing. This was no ordinary place. Felt like hell itself. Shi-chun noticed something unusual in the distance, a towering structure rising from the ground. Before he could fully process it, the earth trembled and figures began emerging from below. They were monsters. Hound-like creatures crawled out of the ground one after another, their bodies wrapped in dark mist. They were death hounds, E-rank cloud-type monsters. The system activated on its own, completing the transition. Shi-chun realized then that he wasn't in an illusion. This place was real, and worse, it was a demon lair. He steadied himself and activated his lightning assassin form. Electricity surged through his body as instinct took over. He couldn't hesitate. The hounds lunged at him in a pack, but he moved faster. His blade flashed, tearing through them one after another. Each strike landed cleanly, efficient, and precise. With every kill, something strange happened. Power flowed into him. Notifications appeared one after another. Item acquired, Death Forest Fragment. The more he fought, the clearer it became. These monsters were nothing to him now. His thoughts sharpened as he moved. With his current strength, E-rank creatures posed no real threat. And more importantly, this wasn't an illusion. This place was real. Then the system chimed again. Level increased. He had reached level 2. Power surged through his his body, and his senses sharpened further. Every stat increased. Every movement felt lighter, faster. This place, it allowed him to grow. Before he could dwell on it, the ground shook again. A massive figure emerged, a much larger hound. A boss. Shi-chun didn't hesitate. He met it head-on. Lightning flashed as he struck, blade tearing through flesh. The battle was brief but violent. When it ended, the monster collapsed, dissolving into particles of light. A new notification appeared. He had gained a large amount of experience and several items, including Death Forest Fong and a rare crystal. His level rose again. The realization hit him all at once. He was leveling up at an unbelievable speed. Then something else caught his attention. A strange option appeared over the remains of the monster. Devourable. Curious, he focused on it. The monster's essence was drawn toward him, condensing into a card that merged into his body. A new message appeared. Acquired trait, Frost Physique, grants resistance to cold and enhances durability in low-temperature environments. Shi-chun stood there in silence, processing what had just happened. He had absorbed the monster, not just its energy but its ability. Only then did the full meaning sink in. The power of gluttony didn't just allow him to grow stronger. It allowed him to devour everything. Shi-chun suddenly realized something terrifying. This power felt familiar, far too familiar. It was exactly the same kind of power once wielded by the Demon King Lan Yu. The ability of gluttony. A power meant to devour everything. That meant one thing. He had stolen something that originally belonged to a Demon King. Normally, every awakener was bound to a single class for life. That was an unbreakable rule. But now, not only did he possess more than one ability, he could even absorb the powers of others. If this continued, there would be no limit to how strong he could become. As this thought settled in, a heavy pressure suddenly crushed down on him. Something was watching him. A presence far more terrifying than anything he had faced so far slowly revealed itself. Its form was unclear. A voice echoed through the space, calm yet overwhelming, saying it had been waiting for him for a very long time. Shi-chun felt his heart tighten. The name of that being flickered in his mind, but he couldn't read it clearly, as if something was deliberately obscuring it. The pressure kept rising, forcing him to steady his stance. In his mind, he quickly evaluated the situation. In the current system, awakeners were ranked from E to S. In his previous life, he had barely reached S rank at the very end. Right now, he was nowhere near that level. And yet, the presence standing before him was unquestionably an S rank existence, or something even higher. The pressure alone was crushing. He tightened his grip on his weapon, fully aware that this was an opponent far beyond him. Still, he refused to back down. The being moved. The exchange that followed was brutal. Blow after blow crashed toward him, each one strong enough to kill him instantly. Yet somehow, he survived. Each attack narrowly missed his vitals, striking just close enough to send him flying without ending his life. Felt intentional. As the fight dragged on, realization dawned on him. This wasn't a battle. It was a test. The being finally spoke again, asking if he truly intended to keep resisting. It told him that he could stay here, remain in this place, and guard the demonic tower. It was offering him a role, an invitation. Shi-chun understood then. The being wasn't trying to kill him. It was testing him, measuring him, but he refused. No matter how overwhelming the pressure, no matter how impossible the odds, he would not bow. He rejected the offer outright. The presence responded coldly, stating that if he continued to refuse, it would not hold back any longer. The only reason he was still alive was because he was the only one capable of reaching this place. And with that, the pressure surged again, far heavier than before. A sudden surge of energy erupted from the ground as the fallen monsters around him began to dissolve. Rocks lifted from the ground, hovering in midair as if gravity itself had been overridden. He realized then that the entity was giving him one final chance. Either submit or be crushed. Shi-chun refused. He forced his power outward, lightning bursting across his body as he condensed it into a blade. The massive creature hurled chunks of stone toward him, but he pushed forward, weaving through the debris with sharp, precise movements. As they clashed, Shi-chun's mind worked rapidly. During the exchange, he noticed a pattern. Each time the being attacked, there was a brief delay, less than half a second before its next movement. A tiny opening, a flaw. If he could time it right, he might be able to exploit that moment. He focused everything into a single strike. Electricity surged violently as he slashed forward, the blade cutting through the air and striking true. The paralyzing effect triggered, locking the creature in place for an instant. But even then, The difference in power was overwhelming. He was thrown back hard, barely managing to stay conscious. Still, he realized something crucial. Even if he couldn't win, he could escape. He activated his full power. Lightning wrapped around his body, pushing his speed to its absolute limit. His movements blurred as he rushed toward the only light source he could see, what he believed to be an exit. Just as he reached out, the light vanished. The world twisted. A presence appeared behind him. The being spoke again, calmly stating that the path he was chasing was nothing more than an illusion. This place, it explained, was not a demon lair at all. Then it revealed itself fully. This was a trial, a test meant to judge him. The being introduced itself, not as a monster, but as a guardian. A purgatory Rakshasa, an S-rank existence. The realization struck Shi-chun like lightning. This presence, it resembled the demon king from his memories. And that was when he understood. This trial wasn't meant to kill him. It was meant to see if he was worthy. Energy surged violently around them as countless streaks of lightning struck down from above. Shi-chun felt the ground tremble beneath his feet as he realized something unsettling. This scene felt familiar. A memory surfaced from his previous life. During the final battle, the Demon King had fought in this exact way, constantly shifting forms, endlessly adapting. No matter what technique was used against him, he countered it with ease. That terrifying adaptability was what made him truly invincible. And now, this presence before him felt the same. As the figure moved, Shi-chun suddenly understood. The form he was seeing now was only one of many. A fragment, a reflection of something far greater. A chilling thought crossed his mind. Had this being been devoured by the Demon King's power of gluttony? And if so, did that mean this place existed inside that very power now dwelling within him? The being seemed to sense his thoughts. It acknowledged his insight, impressed by how quickly he had grasped the truth. It told him that his perception was sharp, that he had proven himself worthy of what lay ahead. Shi-chun felt a heavy pressure in his chest as something appeared before him, a strange, ancient object radiating immense authority. It was a key, not an ordinary one, but a key infused with overwhelming power. The being revealed its nature, the key of the void, an artifact capable of unlocking the sealed layers of the demonic tower. It explained that long ago, the Demon King had devoured countless powerful beings, sealing the strongest among them within this tower. Those entities now waited in slumber, sealed behind countless barriers. The key floated toward Shi-chun, placing itself into his grasp. The being explained that it had waited a long time for someone like him. Among all beings, only Shi-chun had both the will and the compatibility to inherit this power. The Demon King had slaughtered its kind, and it had waited endlessly for a chance at revenge. Now that chance had arrived. It told him that the path ahead would be brutal. The creatures sealed within the tower were far more terrifying than anything he had faced so far. Each one was a monster in its own right, and none would show mercy. But if he chose to walk this path, he would gain the strength to stand above all others. Shi-chun tightened his grip around the key. He didn't hesitate. This was the path he had chosen, the only path that could lead him to change everything, telling him that only someone willing to endure everything could stand at the very top. Only someone capable of conquering all demons and devouring them could inherit that power. The being's form began to dissolve, turning into pure energy that surged straight toward Shi-chun. The moment it entered his body, a violent wave of power exploded inside him. A system notification appeared. Devouring complete. Level increased. His body trembled as energy surged through every vein. He could feel his strength climbing rapidly, far beyond what it had been moments ago. The power didn't stop there. Another notification followed. Acquired Rakshas's underworld boon. A new ability took shape in his mind. He instinctively understood it, an ability that allowed him to absorb strength from fallen enemies, turning their power into his own. Along with it came another technique, one that manipulated gravitational force to crush enemies from all directions. The sensation was overwhelming. He clenched his fist, feeling the terrifying density of power within his body. Then everything went dark. When he opened his eyes again, sunlight streamed in through the window. He was lying in his dorm bed. A familiar voice called out, telling everyone to wake up and get ready. Another voice complained that they were going to be late and needed to hurry. He checked himself instinctively. No wounds, no exhaustion. For a moment, he wondered if everything had been nothing more than a dream. Then his vision flickered. A system window appeared, displaying the card he had just obtained. Rakshasa, Star Warrior class. Reality settled in. Everything had been real. Not only had he survived, he had grown stronger. He had leveled up by a massive amount. His roommate shouted for him again, jokingly asking if he planned to sleep through the day. Someone else teased him, saying they'd heard he was becoming some kind of big shot overnight. Then the upcoming rank test would reveal the truth. They joked that he was still just an E rank, and that even if he improved, the gap between ranks was enormous. Shi-chun said nothing. Inside, he felt the truth settle in. This time, things would be different. As they continued walking, they noticed a large crowd gathered ahead. Someone muttered that the official ranking ceremony at National Awakener University was about to begin. Around them, familiar troublemakers were already causing problems, pushing people aside and barking insults like usual. One of Shi-chen's roommates noticed them and quietly warned the others that those were Gong Chen's lackeys, and that it would be best to avoid trouble. But the moment the group noticed Shi-chun, everything changed. Their expressions stiffened. Their arrogance vanished almost instantly. Instead of causing trouble, they froze, then hurried over and bowed slightly in panic, calling him by name and greeting him with forced respect. The sudden shift left the others stunned. The dorm leader stared in disbelief. He couldn't understand what was happening. Just yesterday, these guys wouldn't even look at them. Shi-chun didn't react. He simply walked past them, not sparing them a glance. Then a new voice cut through the crowd. Someone mocked him openly, questioning whether he really thought he could act important after one small incident. The speaker introduced himself as a member of the student council and made it clear he was close to Gong Ting. People around them whispered nervously. This person was known to be dangerous, one of the student council's top enforcers. The man sneered and claimed he could smell weakness from a mile away. Shi-chun glanced at him and casually asked if he was some kind of dog, since he kept barking about his sense of smell. The comment instantly set the other man off, but before he could take another step forward, a calm voice stopped him. It was his superior. The student council leader stepped in, telling him to stop. He said he had already looked into the situation and confirmed that Gong Chang had been the one in the wrongs. Hearing that, Jiang Tian immediately lowered his head and agreed, clearly unwilling to argue further. The leader's gaze shifted toward Shi-chun. For a brief moment, the two locked eyes. Shi-chen's expression remained calm, unreadable. Then the announcement echoed through the area, signaling the start of the ranking test. Everyone was instructed to gather and prepare. The student council leader gave a final order and turned away. As they walked off, he glanced back once more, quietly assessing Shi-chun. To him, the boy still didn't look particularly threatening. Not far away, another pair watched the scene unfold. One of them commented that the atmosphere seemed unusually tense today and asked if something interesting had happened. The other replied that this year's test might be more entertaining than expected. Soon, the announcement rang out again. The next candidate was called. Xiang's was stepped forward, greeted by cheers from his supporters. People shouted encouragement as he walked toward the testing area with confidence. Shi-chun observed calmly from the side. The test area was a sealed training space, an artificial demon lair designed to measure an awakener's combat ability. Inside it, a core device would record the energy released during battle and calculate the final ranking. Xiangzhua entered the chamber and activated his power without hesitation. Energy surged, the sensors flared, and the room vibrated slightly. Moments later, the result appeared. I-rank, mid-tier. The evaluators recorded the result and announced it aloud. Ma Long leaned forward eagerly, excitement written all over his face. He muttered that this was the main event everyone had been waiting for. Shi-chun explained quietly that the test didn't just measure current strength. It also evaluated a person's potential, the highest rank they could possibly reach in the future. That was the truly important part. Anyone with high potential would immediately attract attention from powerful organizations and even the state itself. The results soon appeared on the screen. Current rank, E-tier, mid-level. Maximum potential, C-tier. The candidate who had just finished testing let out a disappointed sigh. The announcer quickly called the next name. Ma Long leaned over and tried to cheer his friend up, telling him not to take it too hard. After all, most people never even reached D rank in their lifetime. Soon after, another student completed the test. His results caused a stir. D rank, low tier. Gasps rippled through the crowd. People began whispering excitedly. D rank was already considered impressive, especially for students who hadn't undergone real combat training yet. Even the evaluators seemed surprised. They muttered that usually only a handful of students reached D rank each year, and yet several had already appeared. Then it was finally time. The announcer called the next name. Gong Ting stepped forward. The crowd immediately quieted. He was known for having reached D rank 2 years earlier, something extremely rare among students. Even now, the highest recorded result this year was only D rank low tier. No one had surpassed that yet. As he stepped forward, the testing device activated. The demon heart began to resonate faintly, reacting to his presence. He placed his hand against it, expression calm and confident. In his mind, he knew exactly what he was doing. He wasn't going all out. Revealing everything now would only draw unnecessary attention. Still, even holding back, he knew his strength would shock everyone. Then the results appeared. Grade, D tier, high. Potential, S rank. The moment the words appeared, the entire hall erupted. Gasps echoed everywhere. People shouted in disbelief. The student council members were stunned. Even they hadn't expected something on this level. Someone shouted that this was the first S-rank potential in the school's history. Others started murmuring about how this person would soon become a major figure. The instructors exchanged glances. One of them confirmed that the results were accurate and would be reported immediately to higher authorities. Another commented that such a talent would surely receive special attention from the state itself. From the sidelines, a figure watched silently. A man with sharp eyes and an imposing presence, one of the academy's highest authorities. He had come specifically to observe this year's trials. He glanced toward another figure beside him and remarked that the emergence of such talent was rare. The person beside him replied calmly that this was not the one he had come to see. The principal raised an eyebrow, intrigued. The other person continued, saying that compared to this, there was someone even more interesting waiting. At that moment, the announcer called the next name. It was Shi-chen's turn. One of the student council lackeys stepped forward and sneered at Shi-chen, telling him to bring some honor to his dorm for once. He mocked him openly, saying that if all of them ended up with low ranks again, they would become the biggest joke in the entire academy. The other roommates lowered their heads in silence. None of them had the confidence to refute it. Their results had always been mediocre, and deep down, they all knew it. Ma Long clenched his fist and fired back, saying that Shi-chen would shock everyone and make them eat their words. The others only laughed harder. As Shi-chen stepped forward, inside the testing chamber, the atmosphere shifted instantly. The moment Shi-chen stepped inside, the demon core reacted violently. Its surface rippled, and its eyes snapped open, locking onto him with visible tension. Even the creature seemed unsettled. As Shi-chen approached the core, his thoughts were calm and clear. He understood exactly what this test meant. The graduation assessment wasn't just about strength. It was about proving one's worth to the major guilds. Only those who performed well here would earn the chance to be recruited by top-tier organizations. For most students, this was their one and only opportunity to change their fate. The strongest teams would be chosen, and the best among them would be taken by the Imperial Guild itself. Ma Long grew anxious as he watched the testing chamber. Time kept passing, yet there was no result. He muttered that something felt wrong. Normally the evaluation didn't take this long. Others nearby started whispering as well, wondering if Shi-chen's results were so bad that the system couldn't even process them. Some scoffed, saying that if nothing appeared, it probably meant his power was too low to register at all. A few laughed, already assuming the outcome. The student council's followers grew impatient. One of them mocked that the remaining candidates were clearly useless, and that there was no point waiting any longer. He suggested they leave and find somewhere else to relax. The group began preparing to leave, convinced the result was already decided. Then the screen suddenly flickered. The display updated. Rank D high tier. The entire area went silent. Ma Long froze, eyes wide. The others stared in disbelief. Someone shouted that it was impossible. Another voice shouted that the system had to be malfunctioning. Even the bullies looked stunned. Then the system updated again. Warning: abnormal data fluctuation detected. Recalibrating. The crowd held its breath. Shi-chen stood calmly inside the testing chamber, expression unchanged. He knew exactly what was happening. The result he'd just shown was only from his base physical state, without activating any additional power. As the system recalculated, he switched to another internal state, one he had just obtained. The readings spiked instantly. The display flashed violently before settling again. Rank C mid-tier. The room exploded into chaos. Gasps echoed everywhere. People shouted in disbelief. Even the evaluators were stunned, frantically checking their instruments. The system suddenly issued another warning. It detected instability within the demon core, signaling abnormal fluctuations in power. The entity inside began to panic. Its eye widened in fear, trembling as if it could sense something far beyond its control. All it wanted now was for this human to leave, to escape before it was completely destroyed. Shi-chen felt it clearly. He switched forms again. This time, he activated the power of his Purgatory Rakshasa state. The moment the transformation completed, a terrifying pressure exploded outward. The entire testing chamber shook violently. The atmosphere shifted instantly. Everyone watching felt their knees weaken. To them, it was as if a god had descended. The pressure alone alone made it hard to breathe. Some people collapsed to the ground. Others instinctively bowed, unable to resist the instinctual fear flooding their bodies. Then it glitched completely. The system could no longer process the data. The researchers stared in disbelief, panic written across their faces. One of them shouted that the machine couldn't handle this level of output. Another screamed that the readings had exceeded the maximum safe parameters. Even the most composed among them felt fear crawling up their spines. This wasn't just an S-rank talent. This was something that shouldn't exist. The demon core finally reached its limit. Its surface cracked violently before collapsing inward, the energy inside completely exhausted. It had burned itself out, overwhelmed by a force far beyond what it was ever meant to endure. Shi-chun stood there calmly, watching as the last remnants of power faded away. He understood what had happened. He had pushed too far, far beyond what the system was designed to handle. The demon core hadn't failed because of a flaw. It had simply been devoured. As the energy settled, a new notification surfaced in his mind. Acquired exquisite demon heart. The moment it integrated, his perception expanded dramatically. A new awareness spread through his senses, allowing him to perceive the strength of everything around him. Within a certain range, the power of every being became visible to him. It was as if the world had suddenly peeled itself open. Now, with a single glance, he could see the true ranks of everyone nearby. Most were low-level awakeners, E rank, some barely scraping into D. A few stood out slightly higher, but none were truly impressive. Then his gaze landed on Gong Ting. The truth revealed itself instantly. Mid-C rank, Shi-chun felt a flicker of amusement. So even the proud student council president had been hiding his true strength. No wonder he carried himself with such confidence. Someone shouted angrily, blaming Shi-chun for damaging the testing device. Another cursed him for causing trouble and delaying everyone. The shouting grew louder. Then a voice cut through the chaos. It was Gong Ting. He stepped forward, expression calm but firm, telling the others to stand down. He warned them not to disrespect someone like Shi-chun so lightly. That only shocked the crowd further. Then, unexpectedly, Gong Ting extended his hand toward Shi-chun. His tone was composed, almost respectful. He invited him to join his group, saying that together they could dominate the upcoming graduation assessment and claim the top spot. Shi-chun looked at the offered hand. He didn't move. His expression remained calm, unreadable. Inside, he already had his answer. The man who had been barking the loudest earlier nearly lost his mind. His face twisted as he muttered in disbelief, unable to accept what he was seeing. If Shi-chun joined Gong Ting's team, someone would have to be replaced. And that someone would almost certainly be him. When Shi-chun calmly declined the invitation and told them to stop bothering him, the shock on everyone's faces was unmistakable. The surrounding students were stunned. No one had ever refused Gong Ting so casually. Whispers broke out immediately. Some couldn't believe his audacity. Others thought he must be insane. A few even admired his courage. Gong Ting, however, remained calm. He studied Shi-chun with a strange glint in his eyes, as if trying to see through him. He commented quietly that it was fine. Some people simply had their own path. The tension lingered, thick and heavy. Then, elsewhere, the academy's higher-ups were discussing the situation. One of them remarked that it was a shame the two hadn't joined forces. With talents like theirs, they could have rewritten the school's history. Another replied that perhaps it was better this way. A person who could make such a choice without hesitation was dangerous. And dangerous people were never easy to control. Back among the students, the one who had mocked Shi-chun earlier fumed silently. He muttered that the whole thing was ridiculous, that Shi-chun was just lucky, that the test must have malfunctioned. But even he couldn't shake the unease in his chest, because no matter how much he denied it, Shi-chun had already stepped onto a completely different path. Gong Ting waved his hand dismissively and said he wasn't in the mood for karaoke anymore. He told his followers to handle things however they wanted, making it clear that whatever happened next had nothing to do with him. The moment he said that, the man beside him froze, then quickly understood what it meant. He nodded repeatedly, saying he understood completely. A short while later, word spread that Shi-chun had already left the campus. Someone reported that he had gone straight out without even stopping to eat. The man's eyes lit up with interest. This was perfect. Outside the school grounds, there would be no restrictions, no teachers, no rules. That was exactly the kind of opportunity he'd been waiting for. Meanwhile, Shi-chun walked calmly through the streets, his thoughts drifting back to memories from his previous life. He remembered how, during a major operation inside a demon lair deep within the territory of the Shanti region, an elite team had been completely wiped out. That disaster marked the beginning of everything, the moment when the demon king known as Wrath descended into the world. That was the turning point that plunged humanity into chaos. If he wanted to stop that future from repeating, he needed to find that lair before it awakened. And for that, he needed resources. A lot of them. The Mithril Exchange was the fastest way to obtain both funds and equipment. It was the largest trading hub for Awakeners, where monster materials were bought and sold daily. With that in mind, Shi-chun entered the building. A clerk glanced at him skeptically and asked where he had gotten the materials he brought. Shi-chun answered simply that they were monster drops. The clerk frowned, clearly unconvinced. He said he'd never seen anything like it before. Another employee stepped closer and examined the items more carefully. She identified them as parts from a cloud-type monster, specifically the fangs of a Fongson beast. According to records, such materials could be refined into E-rank weapons or processed into alchemical ingredients. The first clerk scoffed and brushed it off, saying that items of that grade weren't rare enough to impress anyone here. He added that their exchange dealt mainly in D-rank and above, and that low-tier materials like this weren't worth much attention. Despite that, Shi-chun remained calm. He had already expected this reaction. What he truly cared about wasn't recognition. It was laying the groundwork for what would come next. The clerk, annoyed, he decided to push the trouble onto someone else and called over a junior staff member, telling her to handle the transaction instead. The young woman quickly stepped forward, bowed politely, and began processing the items. She carefully counted the materials and handed over the payment. It was a respectable sum, more than enough to cover basic expenses for a while. Shi-chun accepted the money calmly. Then, without another word, he brought out something else. The moment the item was revealed, the woman froze. Her eyes widened as she stared at it, stunned. She murmured that she had never seen anything like it before. Judging from its aura alone, it was far beyond common equipment, possibly even B-rank, maybe higher. Her reaction caught the attention of the others nearby. The clerk who had dismissed Shi-chun earlier walked back over, scoffing. He claimed that there was no way such a valuable item could come from someone like him. According to him, true high-grade equipment, especially A-rank, was something he had never seen in all his years working there. Another employee stepped forward to examine it more closely. His expression slowly changed. Then he went quiet. Finally, he spoke, his voice tight with disbelief. He said that this wasn't just high-grade equipment. It was something far rarer. The moment the words left his mouth, and that it was an authentic S-rank artifact, the room fell completely silent. The earlier arrogance vanished instantly, replaced by shock and disbelief. Even the employees who had mocked Shi-chun earlier were now staring at him, as if he were a monster. The store manager rushed over the moment he heard the commotion. After examining the item himself, his expression changed completely. He immediately bowed with respect, greeting Shi-chun as an honored guest. He apologized profusely for the earlier disrespect and invited Shi-chun into the private VIP room, promising to personally handle the transaction and accommodate any requests. As they walked away, Shi-chun glanced back calmly and addressed him by name. The man there asked how much he intended to sell the piece of equipment for. Suchin says 1 million. After hearing this, the man becomes slightly shocked. Then he says he's only asking for 1 million and asks if Suchin understands that even A-rank equipment can sell for millions. He adds that this S-rank weapon could fetch at least tens of millions on the market and could even cause a crowd stampede because it's that valuable. Suchin says he wants to use the S-rank weapon as collateral to get a loan of 1 million, and that he'll pay it back in 1 month. The merchant immediately realizes something and thinks that using an S-rank weapon to secure a loan isn't something a university student would normally think about. It seems Suchin has no intention of actually selling the sword and probably plans to use it himself later. He feels that Suchin is wiser than his age would suggest, and with a treasure like this sword, he wonders whether Suchin is a rich kid who ran away from home or a prodigy hiding his true abilities. Either way, it's clear he's not an ordinary man. Then Suchin says he'll repay the principal in just 1 month and pay an interest of 10% the following month, asking how that sounds. The merchant then says to Xiao Li and asks him to step outside. After the assistant leaves and a brief silence passes, the merchant boss finally says that if he's not mistaken, Suchin attends National Awakener University and that the seniors there are about to graduate. He says that, to his knowledge, the university holds an annual graduation examination, which this year is scheduled to take place exactly 1 month from now. He adds that the prize money for first place is exactly 1 million, which perfectly lines up with Suchin's proposed loan repayment amount and date. He then says that if he had to guess, Suchin is confident he'll take first place in the examination. Suchin doesn't say anything. He just stares seriously and remains silent. The merchant continues, saying that Suchin could have waited 1 month to collect the prize money, yet here he is urgently offering such a rare item as collateral for a loan. This indicates that he's in desperate need of the money, and he wouldn't choose such a risky option unless it was a last resort. He then says that if that's the case, he can loan Suchin 1.5 million in cash on the spot with 0 interest for 1 month. Then he puts his hand forward and says to consider this the start of a friendship between them. Suchin isn't expecting this and is quite surprised. He keeps looking silently as the merchant winks and further says that he can rest assured everything discussed today will be kept strictly confidential. He adds that if Suchin has any trading needs in the future, he should consider their exchange facility as his first option, and he'll make sure to give him the best deal, asking what he thinks. Suchin himself is impressed and thinks that with just a few details, the merchant was able to infer his situation and needs, which is impressive. He also thinks that instead of taking advantage of his predicament once he figured it out, the merchant even offered better terms for the sake of a long-term partnership. It's no wonder King Z will be able to turn the Mithril Exchange into the world's premier exchange in the future. He realizes that in order to eliminate Wrath, he can't rely solely on his own strength, and that's why he needs to start making some trustworthy allies, with this being his first step toward that goal. As both the merchant and Suchin laugh and shake hands, they smile knowingly, aware that this is the first step towards something truly great. Then a hand is placed on a magic seal, and the merchant says that the magic contract is complete and the funds have been transferred to Suchin's account. Suddenly, a notification pops up on Suchin's phone as he looks at it. It shows Avesal Netherbone -1 and $1,500,000 added. The merchant then says that since Suchin is using such a great weapon as collateral, he's curious about what he plans to use for the graduation examination. He offers to lend him some equipment, explaining that while they don't currently have any S-rank equipment, they do have a good selection of high-rank items, including A-rank and B-rank equipment. Suchin says there's no need. He puts his sword forward and says he's still got another weapon just like the one he gave up. After seeing this, the merchant is utterly shocked. Not just the merchant, but the assistant and the other guy as well. They simply can't believe it. It's too astounding for them. The merchant says that there really are so many talented youths these days and tells Suchin to please take care. As Suchin leaves, the assistant cheers, and the merchant himself gives a victory signal. He says that thankfully Shaoli kept helping such an important client and tells her she's being promoted to supervisor immediately. This makes her really happy. However, Suchin then says that he still needs to buy something. Later, we see him getting out of a taxi in front of the Gangchong County long-distance bus terminal. He thinks about his last life when his family struggled financially for a long time. Back then, he had graduated but still hadn't awakened, so no guild would accept him. He remembers always thinking that he was running out of time while doing delivery jobs. He recalls scrambling to pick up odd jobs and still barely managing to scrape together the rent money. He remembers checking his remaining balance, just $105. He thinks about how Uni and he had to live very frugally just to survive. He remembers saying they were broke again after paying that month's rent. She had said it was okay and that she had just found a tutoring job. He recalls seeing an International Central Art Institute admission acceptance letter with student Sherzuan's name on it. She had said she guessed she got in after all, but it was too far away. She ended up tearing it apart and throwing it away, knowing her dream would never come true. She had said she wanted to stay near her big brother. Suchin thinks about how she was so worried about adding more financial burden to the family that his little sister gave up on her dream school. Later, as he looks around, he says it's getting pretty late and that Uni should have gotten off the bus by now. Suddenly, a voice calls out to him, saying that if he's going to pick someone up, he should go to the exit, not the entrance, and complains that they're broke again after paying this month's rent. It's Uni. It's been 7 years since he last saw her after such a long time apart. She tells him to hurry up and help with the luggage and asks why he's just standing there like a dummy. Suchin doesn't say anything and just hugs her. He says it's been such a long time and that it's been 7 years since he's been able to see see her. She's confused and asks if he's trying to choke her to death. Yuni pushes back and says he's been acting really weird the last couple of days, asking if he got rejected by a girl or something, and tells him to hurry up so they can go home. Shuchin says no. As they walk back, she starts talking excitedly about how crazy the ride was when she went to take her exam and keeps going on and on. Shuchin thinks to himself that this time, he won't let her suffer anymore. All he wants is to see her laugh like this. Meanwhile, a group of people say that this is definitely the route that punk Shuchin takes to get home. Their leader tells them to hide and says that the moment he shows up, they'll jump him. He smirks, clearly excited, and starts laughing like a maniac. He says he'll make sure Shuchin learns what happens when you mess with him. One of the goons says that, by the way, boss, since a bunch of student council members are here, what if things go too far? The boss says TCH, he was just gonna teach him a little lesson, but that guy's attitude really pisses him off. He says that low-tier E-rank piece of trash actually thinks he's a C-rank now and has no idea who he's messing with. Then he remembers how Shuchin said that the two of them should love each other and never bother him again. Another one says that when it's time, they better leave him a piece because he's going to destroy Shuchin. Someone else says that Shuchin won't be able to take the graduation exam in 2 weeks once he's done with him. The boss then says that he's one of the best cloud-type assassins in the entire school and tells Shuchin to just wait until he's done with him, calling him a poser piece of trash. He's Chong D, a rank D cloud assassin. Meanwhile, as Shuchin and his sister Yuni are walking together, she says that he's been acting pretty weird the last couple of days and asks if he's stressed about the graduation exam. She says that a simpleton like him doesn't normally get caught up in his emotions. She tells him that no matter what happens, he has to pull himself together, reminding him that he's always the one who told her that life is a long journey and chances will come sooner or later. She even starts humming a song about believing in yourself and just keeps talking. Shuchin quietly watches her and enjoys the moment, thinking that Yuni is really perceptive and noticed something was different about him the moment they met. He thinks that she still doesn't know he has awakened, so she probably believes they're still strapped for cash. He then says that he promises he's okay. Yuni, however, thinks that he's still trying to deny it and wonders if it's because of his male pride. She thinks that men start forming emotional walls as they get older and jokes to herself that the book she read was right after all, and that it looks like her big brother is getting old. While she's thinking all this, Shuchin is completely confused about what she means. At the same time, a few guys are watching them from the shadows. One of them says that the guy has a girl with him. The boss says this is perfect and points out that the alley has no cameras, calling it their lucky day. Suddenly, Shuchin notices that something feels off. He thinks about the smell and realizes it's those guys from the student council. He immediately recognizes them and thinks that they've got a lot of nerve coming here as a group. He understands that something is about to go down. As soon as the threat is confirmed, suddenly, Shuchin takes out some earphones, puts them on his sister Yuni's ears, and says he's been really into this song lately and has been playing it on repeat, telling her to listen. Yuni says and asks since when he started listening to music. Even so, she starts listening and ends up enjoying it. She thinks that music can reflect a person's mental state, so she'll listen carefully and try to understand her big brother better. While Yuni is busy listening, Shuchin turns around and takes a look at everyone there. Most of them are E-rank, some high tier, some low tier, with a few D-rank low tiers mixed in. Meanwhile, Yuni is completely absorbed in the lyrics, which talk about the rush swallowing a bird's reflection, the sky shattering into echoes of goodbyes, and the days on the calendar fading away as humanity's final civilization approaches. As she listens to the music, all the goons suddenly start rushing toward Shuchin on their boss's order. Shuchin thinks about how in his last life, the year 2160 was when he lost his last family member. It wasn't until 2167 that he was reborn and able to come back, finally seeing his little sister again. As these thoughts run through his mind, electricity begins to pour out from his fists, surging through his entire body. He thinks that this is the first time in 7 years he's been reunited with his family, and wonders how they dare try to ruin this moment. The goons don't care and keep charging at him. Shuchin jumps forward and kicks the first guy who attacks him, sending him flying. When they see this, the other goons start to panic. Yuni, however, is still completely lost in the song, listening to lyrics about ruins disguised as problems and crumbling walls splitting to reveal a blue peak. Shuchin clenches his fist again as the music continues, talking about laughter and scorn existing only in shadows. The goons grow terrified as they see his punch coming straight at them. The punch isn't just meant for one person. After hitting him, Shuchen continues striking the guys behind him, then the ones further back, again and again, as the music roars on about a magnificent star shooting across the galaxy. Then, another goon tries to muster up some courage. However, as the music says that he reaches his hand out toward fate, Shuchen simply grabs the goon's hand and breaks it with an elbow strike. As the music goes on about finally hearing that faint echo again, the goon screams, but because he's screaming too loudly, Shuchen punches him straight in the face, sending him flying into another group of goons who all go flying as well. As the music says that he'll give everything he has to protect that fragile star, the boss is completely shocked. He thinks holy shit and wonders what the hell is wrong with this guy and how he can be this strong, especially as he sees Shuchen charging toward him with a thunderous aura. At this point, the goons stop showing any courage at all. They just watch as their friends get beaten again and again, waiting for their own turn. Soon enough, it's finally time for the boss to take a hit, and Shuchen has prepared an especially big one just for him. The boss says he's the strongest cloud-type assassin and tries to say something else, finally forcing himself to show some courage. It's honestly questionable why he didn't show this courage earlier when his goons were getting beaten up. If he had attacked together with them, there might have been a much better chance of winning. Still, at least he's trying now. He screams and curses, saying Shuchen really thinks he can't beat him, but he can't beat Shuchen at all. Instead, Shuchen punches him straight in the face, sending both the knife he was about to attack with and the boss himself flying away. Shuchen doesn't stop there. He moves behind him and delivers another massive blow, sending him flying once again and breaking his teeth in the process. The boss crashes into a wall and collapses inside it. When he opens his eyes, all he sees is a demon standing in front of him. The guy he came here to beat is the very one who defeated him instead. Shuchen says that he clearly told him to never bother him again, but he didn't understand. He then asks him which part of that he didn't understand, his expression extremely serious. The boss thinks that his ribs are all broken and both of his legs are numb. He realizes that the rank assessment was real and that Sichan really isn't a D rank. With the little strength he has left, he just says sorry. However, Shuchen grabs him, presses his own knife against him, and says to shut up, warning that if he makes a sound, he'll kill him. The boss is absolutely terrified. He can clearly tell from Shuchen's eyes and thinks they aren't lying, that Shuchen really will take him down. He wonders how someone who's clearly just a student can have such terrifying killing intent and what he must have been through. Shuchen says he better remember every single word he's about to say. He says he doesn't care if all of them rot, but they better never bother him again. He adds that if they ever try to harm his sister, no, if they even appear in front of her, then one by one, without a second thought, he'll make each of them disappear permanently, asking if they understand. Seeing how serious he is, the boss hurriedly nods and says yes, he understands. Shuchen then throws the knife away and leaves the goon lying on the ground. As the song continues, it talks about migrating birds returning and the sky going back to its usual cloudy and sunny cycle. Uni suddenly feels a sense of loneliness. As the song goes on, calendars are no longer modeled, and beneath the dawn, shadows are nowhere to be seen. She wonders why the song makes her want to cry as tears start falling from her eyes. She thinks that it's only been a few days since they reunited, yet her brother is acting like he's been through so much. She wonders how he can be this lonely, and thinks that she's always been by his side. She then turns and says that he's taking this joke a little too far. But as she turns around, Shuchen opens a box, revealing that he has something for her. He says he got this for her and that it's a nice, shiny pen. She's shocked and says it's a magic holographic pen, the latest style from Draco, and that it costs over 10 grand. She asks where he got the money for it. Shuchen just laughs. Inside, he thinks about how in his last life he failed to protect her. Uni hesitates and says maybe they should return it because it's way too expensive and that she doesn't like it that much. Shuchen, however, thinks about how he couldn't even protect her dream in his last life. As he hides his bloodied hand, he tells himself that he'll protect everything about her this time. As the siblings walk away together, the goons are left lying in the shadows, silently hoping someone will call an ambulance for them. Then we see Uni using the magic holographic pen, happily drawing beautiful fish art. She says she can't believe it really works and that it can draw holographic images in the air. Shuchen, however, is busy eating. He says that as long as she likes it, that's all that matters, while thinking to himself that Uni's fried egg noodles are seriously the best. Then Uni says that they still have to pay the rent and that he's just throwing money away like this. Shuchen says he's already paid the full rent for the entire year. This completely surprises her. She says, "What? and Shuchen explains that he started a small business with a friend and they made some money, so it worked out. However, the way he says all this and starts laughing feels really weird to Yuni. She thinks that her brother really sucks at lying and that he's acting way too suspicious. She thinks that he's clearly keeping secrets from her now. Still, she also thinks that it's been ages since she's seen such a genuinely happy smile on his face, and that alone makes her happy too. So she moves closer to him and says that no matter what happens, he just needs to make sure he doesn't push himself too hard. Yuni showing this kind of care really moves Shuchen, and he simply responds with a quiet acknowledgement. Later, elsewhere, someone reports while looking at medical data that the injured person has suffered severe injuries, with over 60% of his body fractured, and that even the top doctors wouldn't be able to heal him in just 1 month. Another person says they can't believe he actually picked a fight with Shuchen, and that being beaten to this state is unbelievable. A woman there says it looks like he'll have to miss the graduation exam. A man responds that it doesn't matter and that his team will be better off without any dead weight. Then another figure arrives. He is Gong Xian, the National Awakener University Director of Career Services. He says that it's Shuchen again. He then says he has confirmed the internal results of the last ranking assessment and that Shuchen is indeed C rank. He adds that Shuchen is the only student in the entire school with a higher rank than his. Hearing this, the man can't help but react. Gong Xian then says that his father has invited the vice chairman of the alliance to personally inspect his performance at the graduation examination. He tells him to make sure he doesn't allow anyone else to steal the spotlight. He adds that if all else fails, he can only ask his niece to fill the vacancy left in Gong Ting's team, and if that happens, things will take a different turn. However, the guy says that Sir is overthinking things and asks if he really thinks he used his full abilities during the ranking assessment. He says to rest assured that on the day of the combat examination, he'll make sure everyone knows who the strongest really is. He's clearly fully prepared for it all. At 11 p.m., in the National Awakener University men's dormitory, Shuchen is taking a bath. He thinks that he has completed today's 100-kilometer weighted run. He also thinks that now that the money issue is solved, everything else is going smoothly, and that he should be able to start his meal plan after graduation. He thinks about the next step, securing the 1 million yuan prize money at the graduation examination so he can pay back his loan to King Z. He reminds himself that he has to honor his agreement with King Z, since there will be many things he'll need from him in the future. With less than a month left until the examination, he knows he needs to level up a few more times. After that, he closes his eyes and tries to sleep, because that's exactly where he does all his leveling. Suddenly, the system begins initializing. Once the loading finishes, the status shows that initialization is complete and that the glutton system has been initiated. He finds himself standing in front of a massive tower. He thinks about how the last assessment results showed that his weakest class, Gravehound King, is C rank. He also recalls that the official rank of his strongest class, Abyssal Fiend, wouldn't display. When the system tried to show it, it returned a message saying that the potential rank value couldn't be determined because the maximum system bounds were exceeded. Shuchen then thinks that even though Abyssal Fiend is an S-rank class, he currently can't use it to its full potential and isn't sure how much more power the class still holds. Because of that, the exact ranks of his remaining 2 classes are still unknown. He then takes out the Time Rift Key, an SSS rank item and the only key capable of unlocking the gates of the Tower of Darkness. As he uses the key, he thinks that he'll put it to the test today. When the key activates, the gate slowly opens. Shuchen starts walking forward, wondering what lies inside the Tower of Darkness and what kind of scene is waiting for him. As he steps into the void beyond the portal, he's shocked beyond belief and says that this place is something else entirely. Now, whatever this place is, if you want to find out, then subscribe right now and turn on all the notifications, because this chapter ends here.